It's Monday, and that means it's time for the Legend of the GLORIO Heroes. We're going to talk about the legendary 1988 OVA, discuss its themes, and despair its events in the 18th episode of this podcast. As always, I'm your host, G, desperately struggling to not have an emotional breakdown here over the events of these recent episodes. With me, as always, my emotional rock and famous for his steely gaze stoicism in these hard times is my co-host, Iro.
Hi, that's me.
Yes. Stoic.
Sure.
And,
Is that the same thing as just emotionally deadened?
Iro, the stoic navigator, the stoic co-pilot. He never... his gaze never wavers in the face of overwhelming odds and the impeding destruction of democracy. But I'm glad you're here because we have an interesting duo of episodes.
We ran up against the question of how to split up the last 4 episodes of the season, and we settled on 2 episodes of 2.
Yes.
So this might be a shorter one, maybe. We'll find out.
Yeah, we have our suspicions after doing our season 1 finale podcast that there will probably be things at the end of this season we are going to want to talk about, and we might talk about them at length. So probably better to have have our standard length episode here, talking about the 2 episodes we're going to talk about here, and then next time we will be doing our season finale podcast once more, where we're going to bring on some other members of the GLORIO crew to talk about our feelings and thoughts on episodes 53 and 54 and the end of season 2.
Which we have not yet to see, so...
No, we have not seen those yet as of this recording. I want to give this guarantee to all you lovely listeners out there.
We don't know what's happening next.
Yes, our takes are fresh, farm fresh from farm to table takes.
Organic, certified.
Yes, these are organic, free roam takes. We don't watch ahead of we don't do that sort of coy like, oh, I do wonder what'll happen to young Wenli next. Like, no, we straight don't fucking know, and it scares us.
I've seen the alleged pictures of long hair Reinhard.
Yes. So we keep these takes fresh. So let's just get right into it, Iro. What episodes are we watching?
Yeah, we're talking about episodes 51 and 52, which are respectively the Battle of Vermilion, Part 1 and 2.
Yes, so that gives you an idea of what we're getting into here. We're talking about the Battle of Vermilion, the legendary clash between the trickster, the source of disease, the magician, the miracle man, Yang Wenli, and his empire counterpart, who does not have nearly as many titles. But perhaps he only needs one.
Admiral.
Yes. Well, yes, I guess he had that one back in the day. But perhaps a man only needs one title when it is Kaiser Reinhard von Lohengram. So.
Technically not Kaiser yet, is he?
Okay, fine. He's not Kaiser yet, but people are saying, see Kaiser, Kaiser.
Kaiser and Catherine or something? This is technically on the throne, swaddled on the throne.
Yes, fine. Look, I'm just saying enough people have said, mein Kaiser, that you might as well start calling him that already.
It's true.
But
and as we start episode 51, mein Kaiser Reinhard von Lohengram is headed for Heinessen, and all of these other fleets have all spread out.
Yeah. They have purposely spread themselves out so as to isolate Reinhard von Lohengram, to force Yang Wenli into a confrontation. And so that's kind of how the episode opens up, and we kind of get this great little tactical strategic talk here about it's a very minor point, but I want to get into it because it really speaks to this idea of even though they know each other's strategies, there are all these other still little minor things that can come into play that could make potentially huge differences later on.
Mm-hmm.
Basically the way Reinhard attack goes towards Heinessen, he basically puts himself on a path that forces Yang to attack him earlier than he'd like. like Reinhardt is separated, but Yang basically wanted to wait until Reinhardt was the maximum distance from his admirals,
Right.
But he actually could
the
not.
way they're spreading out is
Yeah.
that he can't wait, because if he waits, then Reinhardt will just fall upon Heinesen.
Yes, like he can wait no longer. So this is the time to attack, and like so you can kind of see this thing here where like. Yes, Reinhardt set this. Reinhardt set this plot. He is isolating himself to fight Yang Wenli, but at the same time, this is all in response to what Yang Wenli was doing in the prior episodes. Like, in a ways, it is their plots playing against each other in these like very minute and interesting ways. But anyways, so this happens. We get Julian Yang talking again. It's been a while.
And, Julian sees through Reinhardt's plans, basically.
He knows it's a trap. I mean, I think everybody knows it. I'm sure even Young knows it's a trap, but Julian is there to just spell it out for us that, hey, this is clearly like he would not do, like Reinhardt is not the man who would do this unless he was exceedingly confident he could pull it off. And we kind of have a bit here from Yang where he's also,
like, Yang, also like assures Julian that he doesn't want to fight Reinhardt 1-1 just out of pride or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, he is not a warrior in the same way that Reinhardt is.
And that if Yang had it his way, he would win. If he could win without fighting, he would. Like, that is kind of the Yang Wenli way. And, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And so, but he also says he wants to figure out how to use Reinhardt's romanticism and pride to defeat him.
Yes, a lot of, like, little mind game stuff here. We see how that goes. So that happens, and Frederica comes into Yang's office, and Yang waves Julian away, and we have what is maybe finally Yang's most awkward moments,
right.
But also maybe the thing that made me the most anxious I have ever been in this show.
Yang has declared some time for R&R before the battle, and so everyone wants to, shore up their stuff, get everything done, because they might die.
Get their final affairs into order, and I think we have a bit here where Konev says he's going to sleep, which, oh god,
boy is he
sleeping by the end of these episodes. God damn it. But so we have Yang kind of speaking in private with Frederica, and Yang starts pacing back and forth. He starts
Yang Wenli.
He starts rambling about this and that, about the war and what men and women do, and he's just stumbling completely over himself, but also, like, Frederica's really not helping things either here. She's like...
She knows what's going on.
She knows, but she's also like, let's be real. Like, so
there's a shot of her putting lipstick on before going to the street.
Yes. I mean,
yes. Well, right.
Here's the thing. I don't know if she did that specifically for that, or is that supposed to imply that Frederica always does that before meeting with Yang Wenli?
I think either way, like...
But yes, we all know Frederica has a thing for Yang, but so... Just to get to it, yes. So Yang finally proposes to Frederica in what is literally the most awkward marriage proposal I have maybe ever seen in my life. The secondhand embarrassment is real, folks. God damn it, Yang.
He's such a boy, though.
Yeah, Yang's a good guy, but what I mean is, like, what I say is Frederica doesn't help is, like, I didn't realize it until this episode, but also kind of how awkward Frederica is as well.
I like how her first reaction to him saying, I'd like to get married, is like, oh, well, if we pull our pensions, living expenses wouldn't be a problem at all.
Right? She starts talking about...
I mean, like, that's also incredibly Yang Wenli.
Yes, it is extremely on-brand. But yeah, just like... I mean, also there's kind of a lovely implication here where, like, Frederica doesn't even need to say yes, because the implication, why, like, how could you ever doubt what she'd say? So of course he just moves immediately on to, well, our finances will probably cover us. So.
Yeah, we'll be fine. Don't worry, Yang Wenli, who seems to always talk about earning his pension.
Yeah, and that. Oh god, Yang, you can't just say stuff like this.
Oh, we're getting married before the final battle of the season, huh?
No, because
We'll definitely get married afterwards.
no, Yang's like, don't worry, we'll get married after the war is over.
After this battle, when we're all gonna be alive for sure.
Oh god,
Absolutely, all of us will still be alive, and everything will be fine, and we can get married.
so
There's definitely not 50 more episodes of the show.
So I think we'll save we'll save the very, I think, uncomfortable.
Speculation.
We'll save the very uncomfortable speculation for at the end of episode our 51 talk. But oh boy, never have I seen somebody's plot armor evaporate so quickly as Yang Wenli's in episode 51. Like, dude, you're a historian. You should know that. Don't ever propose to marry somebody after the war.
Check out this picture of my lovely girlfriend back home.
Like,
when we get home, we're gonna get married.
Like, for fuck's sake, dude, fucking Kazalnu has more plot armor than you at this point, and he has a family and children. Like, we already saw what family and kids did to fucking to Kemph. Like having a family is a fatal choice in Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yeah, how long? I think will Mittermeier die until? What are Mittermeier's chances?
I think Mittermeier's fucked. Like, he's also got a sweetheart back home, right?
Yeah. Once he receives the call that she's pregnant, he'll eat it instantly.
No, I mean, shit, dude. Like, fucking, look, man. Like, Reuenthal's smart. I hate to admit it, but he's smart. That's why, as we said all those episodes back, this is why Reuenthal pumps and dumps. No emotional connection. Nothing to strip away his plot armor. Like Reuenthal, this fucking selfish dickhead of an admiral, will probably live until literally the last 10 episodes because
he's gathering power.
Yeah, because he looks out for number one. Meanwhile, it's all these other fucking goobers getting married and falling in love that are gonna get got.
Boy.
It's like, hell, at this point now my speculation isn't that Julian is gonna survive because he's smart and a good person. It's probably because Julian's gonna stay single.
Ouch.
But
speaking of
so let's just get into that part.
Kazunu
good old
pulls him aside for and because he knows the score.
Yeah, because Kazunu
pours him just a glass of whiskey or glass of liquor.
Whatever. Is it straight or was there ice?
There was ice.
Okay,
but also fucking Julian slams the shit back,
hoovers it up in a single go. Yeah, which is that look when Yang does that, you're just like, okay, Yang, that's fucking Tuesday night. When Julian does that, man, yeah. And so Kazunu kind of correctly guesses that Julian has always had a crush on Frederica.
I've never said it on tape, but I feel like that has been relatively hinted at, clear-ish.
I would say definitely. I would definitely say, if you speculated it, I think it's definitely a very reasonable speculation to have. I think that overall, Legend of the Galactic Heroes was it was nuanced and subtle enough to never really hammer you on the head over it.
I never brought it up because I didn't think it would go anywhere. Right.
But at the same time, in retrospect, now all of those shots that hold on Julian looking at Frederica for just a second too long. It all kind of makes sense now,
Also, he always calls her Frederica and never Lieutenant Greenhill or anything.
Yes, I guess that's a good point as well. Yes, and yeah, it's look, as a big fan of Persona 5, and all of the notably older women in that game that you can woo, my heart goes out to Frederica. I mean, it's Julian here. Just look, man. Hey,
yeah.
Better to have loved and lost, though, right? That's kind of what Kazunu. Sure. That's what Big Brother Kazunu is here for. He said, offer some sage advice on love. That there's no logic to it. There is no rationality to love. There is no formula. There is no equation. There is nothing you can rationally. There's no way you can rationally define it. And you should be worried should you ever become too rational about love. And
yeah. as they're just slamming back.
Oh yeah. Like let's not. Yes,
That's
like Iro, were you counting how many glasses Julian downed? Like the span of 5 minutes.
I consider myself a pretty heavy drinker, and I wouldn't go that hard.
It's a good thing that they had R&R for 12 hours because Julian's
that would mess me up for longer than 12.
Julian's gonna need all 12 of those hours to sober up after like downing like 4 glasses in like 5 minutes.
Kazunua fucking gives him some shit, and he's like, I wonder if they'll still call each other Admiral and Lieutenant Commander even after they're married.
Good old Kazunua, you know?
Yeah, and asks Julian what he plans on doing afterwards, because he doesn't want to be a third wheel, right?
Right. He's not going to keep living at their house once they're married.
Yeah. So he says he wants to go visit Earth, check out what's the deal.
Yeah, like what has driven so many people.
He hung out with Degsby for a while. Yeah. Crazy drug man, Bishop Degsby.
Yes. Hung out with a crazy druggie for a couple days, and suddenly now he's talking about wanting to go to Earth. But
he's heard the words of the Earth cult.
Yeah,
my mother. Turret in my hand.
Yeah, he wants to check that shit out. And I wonder if I wonder if we'll see that come into play down the line, because when they say Julian wants to check out Earth someday, what does someday even mean in the fucking nightmarish quagmire of politics and warfare that is Legend of the Galactic Heroes?
Well, they're just saying it for the next few episodes.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
But yeah, so the R&R passes, and FPA scouts pick up the Empire fleet, and they start getting ready for the fight.
Yeah.
Yang's kind of talking to his crew about, like, look, all right, like, this is the fight. Like, I'm not going to give you all a speech or anything. I'm going to be straight about this. Shenkop is probably, or not, sorry, I'm getting my notes mixed. Mittermeier is probably going to be one who gets back first. So we gotta beat the fuck out of Reinhard before that. Get to the flagship, blow it up, like, fucking kill Reinhard, end this war. Everybody goes home, gets married, But and they all kind of start leaving, but Shenkop stays behind, and I think bless Shenkop always kind of been
number
like
2, pretty much.
Yeah. I think it's true. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, I think at this point, right, like, Shenkop is Yang's number 2. Like I feel like early on they tried to frame Kazunua as that guy, but I feel like these days, like Kazunua is more like an actual friend, I guess, considering the way those two talk to each other. Whereas Shenkop is the dude who's actually like here's the thing. I think what makes Shenkop a great number 2 is that, like, he is undeniably loyal to Yang Wenli, but he's also, like, he kind of does a bit of that Mirai thing of, like, he's also the guy who's like, he is like, what if Oberstein were a good person? What if Oberstein weren't a fucking dick? Is kind of what Shenkop is, because Shenkop is the one who
advocate for the questionable methods.
Yeah, like Shenkop is the one who's willing to say stuff like, why don't we just let the NSMC purge all the politicians?
Right.
Like, he's kind of the one who's willing to at least float that in the air. And I think the reason why he is undyingly loyal to Yang Wenli is because he asks those questions, and Yang Wenli never dodges them. He never avoids them. He answers.
Yang Wenli never falters in his resolve.
Right. And I think that is what convinces Shenkop to stay loyal. But he basically he tells Yang that, like, hey, you have a unique perspective. There is perhaps no admiral like you, and nor will there ever be. That you don't fight for glory. You don't fight for honor. Hell, it's hard to tell if you even fight for anything, really.
Right.
You're a man who doesn't believe in himself, but keeps winning fights. And why is that? What?
Yeah.
Who is the man Yang Wenli?
How do you justify your actions if you don't believe in, like, everything that you're doing, like, in the purposes of your nation, or
right? Because
or believe in your own valor, like.
Right, because say what you will about even the worst, most, like, piggish admirals, but an admiral who fights for, like, what he believes is, his nation or whatever, is ostensibly considered someone who will also, like, that is why he sends those men to their deaths. But what about a man like Yang Wenli? How does he live with sending men to their deaths for a cause he doesn't necessarily even believe in? And does not even believe he can win. Like how can it's like thinking of like how can you send men to their deaths when you don't even believe you can win the fight, right? Like who is that man? And we kind of finally get like what I think we've always wanted Yang Wenli to say, because we believe that this is the core of his
I think
character.
this is the one of the quotes that I did see like pre-watching this show, because
Yang Wenli finally busts out who Yang Wenli is as a character, and he says that he believes, say what you will about the FPA, say what you will about Job Trunick, say what you will about everything that has happened in our lives, but I believe that in the long run, like I'm not talking about like short term, I'm not talking about like what we need here and now, but in the long run for the human race, I believe it is better to be ruled by the worst democracy than the best autocracy. This is Yang Wenli. This is a man who truly believes in democracy, who truly believes in liberalism, that these political tools which give voice to a nation's entire civilian populace instead of just that power remaining in the chosen few, and that yes, can it fail sometimes? Can those people vote against their own self-interest? Can they often ruin themselves because of those very tools they've been given? Yes, but also he believes that it is the moral imperative that it is better that mankind make those choices as a collective whole than for the individual few to force those decisions upon everybody else. And
although, as Schenkop says, like Kaiser Rudolph rose to emperor with the full support of his nation.
He was voted in, and again, I think like Yang Wenli says, and if that's what the people want, like A, so be it, but also B, what a fascinating moral quandary.
Well, we don't have time to think about such quandaries because the enemy has arrived.
Yes, so after Yang Wenli basically lays down the very core fiber of his being, the battle begins. The battle for Vermilion starts, and
space battle.
Yeah, just kind of an open battle between Yang Wenli and Reinhard, and it starts off. They're both suspecting the other has got a trick up their sleeve, so they're playing it pretty safe.
Wouldn't you suspect the trickster Yang Wenli to have tricks?
I mean, yes. So you know what? It's a pretty smart choice, all said and done.
There's a couple good shots here of ships shooting each other. Real good Macross missile launch.
Oh man, yeah, with that Imperial destroyer. Yeah. Oh man, yeah, some really good shots in this fight. Just that
always up for Eton Circus.
Yeah, yes, and just that good space opera stuff that like it scenes like this where you remember that these are the stereotypes that people associate with Legend of the Galactic Heroes. But
doesn't bust all that often, honestly.
No, it doesn't actually. I mean, look, that shit is expensive. You got to save it for when it really matters. But yeah, so they're kind of just trading shots with each other. Kind of slowly, kind of bleeding each other out. We get a great point. We get a great bit here where Ternisen gets hasty, pushes his section of the fleet a little too hard, a little too early into the battle, and gets totally fucked up as a result.
But he wants the chance to take out Yang Wenli with his own hands.
Yeah, fucking hey kid, fucking get in line. Everybody does. Fucking literally every citizen of the goddamn empire.
Right there. We can get him.
Yeah. Guess what? Fucking. That's everybody wants a piece of Yang Wenli,
and everyone just says, "What the fuck are you doing, Ternisen?"
Right, Oberstein has a great line where he just looks at Reinhard and is like, "What a hero!" Just like,
Oberstein.
God damn it, Oberstein. But yeah. So this battle keeps going. It gets pretty gnarly.
We get some shots, some class. I feel like I want to see these shots in any big space type show, but
yeah, we start to see the human cost of the battle.
Shots of the corridors exploding and men vivisected and
like being disemboweled and like split in half, like
screaming and like leaning on each other and
yeah,
being
yeah,
melted by fire. And
yeah. It's gory, but also
we
it's like
got a mystical shot of a framed photo of Jean Trunick sitting in fire.
yes. As if you could not understand it better, the narrator then kind of kicks in that like never forget the cost of war, and that
Yeah.
like those far from the lines, always talk about how righteousness is the most important thing in battle because it's the only way you can convince young men and women to throw their lives into something as horrible as this.
Yeah.
But because
To bring about the things they champion, they must pay in human blood.
right, other people's human blood, not their
Yeah,
own
of course.
blood, and
And then, narrator goes into how if one were to compare Reinhard von Lohengram with those unworthy rulers who sit in their high towers, it's that Reinhard stands at the front line with his troops. And as for young Wenli, the thing that separates him from them is that he truly understands and feels the guilt of every man he orders to his death.
yeah, and then the episode ends on a cheery note with Yang wondering if he even deserves happiness over the guilt of the human lives he's cost in this war. And
Yeah, and even though now he reciprocates Frederica's feelings, he still wonders if he deserves happiness.
yes, and
It's like, oh, what a way to end the first half of
oh,
a
boy.
pitched battle pair of
Yeah.
episodes.
It's a lot. It's a lot. And okay, so let's get into the two big topics I think that come up with episode 51. So the first one I think is going to be kind of what makes for good leadership, or what do people perceive as good leadership? We kind of see here like, oh, Reinhardt's great because sure he's a ruthless autocrat, but also he leads from the front. There's kind of this implication that he puts his money where his mouth is.
I think something that is considered like an extremely positive words. Something that's considered like a admirable trait, like across media, is self-sacrifice.
Oh
right?
Yeah, I mean it is the idea of we glorify the concept of a man who truly believes in something. Reflects that in not only his words but his physical actions and his presence.
Right.
This idea that a great leader leads from the front. That he's
willing to risk himself.
Yes, is willing to risk himself for his ideals. And I don't necessarily say those are bad things, right? Like those are, at the end of the day, they're just concepts. Mm-hmm. And I think that is like just from a point of perception, that is what makes Reinhard more admirable. That is what makes him more noble. Like
he is certainly a more classically heroic character than Yang Wenli.
Yes, and it's totally understandable why he is so popular, and probably why Reinhard is arguably more popular than Yang in general. Is that he is a hero.
Is much more active and heroic.
He is the legendary galactic hero. Like he is a man who's driven by an ideal, and he does not use proxies. He does not use whatever. He does it himself, and it's
so far, if Legend of Galactic Heroes was a Fire Emblem game, Reinhard would be the main character.
Yes, and Yang Wenli would be
the honorable general on the wrong side.
No, I was going to say Yang Wenli is the tactician. He's the character that doesn't even make it onto the map.
Yeah,
like unless you're playing the first Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem, where your tactician could actually be represented on the map with a caravan wagon. But I digress. It's the kind of the thing of like, I get it, right? Like that's what makes Reinhard, admirable and popular and charismatic. And yet, at the same time, like all of those same ideals are often used and exploited by authoritarianism. like those ideals are what fuel the philosophy that, oh, you're right. Most of us are lesser. Most of us are
Great
not
man
worthy.
theory.
Right. It leads to great man theory, something that has been thoroughly debunked by modern historians. Or we've approached more of a middle ground, like where it's where we no longer just assume, oh, all things in history are just caused by great singular individuals. But it is that exact philosophy that allows people to believe, oh, why should I have political agency? I'm not a hero. I'm not
I'm just
legendary.
a regular guy.
What right do I have to have any say in politics or my rule when there's someone like Reinhard von Lohengrin? Meanwhile,
That's why we have representative democracy. Ideally.
well,
uh,
But anyways, kind of get to the other side though. Like I think Yang Wenli is like you're right. He is less traditionally heroic, but I think in many ways he is just as admirable because of exactly what they say in this episode. Like, sure, does Yang Wenli tend to lead from the back? Of course. Does he use tricks? Does he use deception? Does he do everything that would make him a villain in any other anime? Of course. But also, he doesn't do these actions lightly. We see this as far back as when he took Iserlohn. Yang does not take any action he commits lightly.
Right. He becomes more sympathetic because we see him like internally suffer for what he chooses to do.
Right,
basically.
right. Like, let's not forget, this is the Yang Wenli that told Julian, never forget the civilians of the enemy side. Like, to everybody, to the outsider, it is totally understandable why Yang Wenli is called the Scourge, a source of disease.
That dirty trickster.
Right, this malign trickster who delights in humiliating and destroying the Empire fleets, and their heroic and gallant admirals. But because we see
he's just pictured Yang Wenli dressed up as fucking dastardly Whiplash or something.
Exactly.
I'll get you next time, gadgets.
Right, like there should totally be like if that Legend of the Galactic Heroes like fucking gotcha game still existed, like there should have been an alternate costume of Yang Wenli that was like Demon King Yang Wenli.
Oh boy,
like, dressed up like fucking Oda Nobunaga or something, to like live up to his perception by the Empire's side. But at the same time, because we see his inner thoughts, yeah, as you say, because we see him suffer for his choices, we understand that no, like Yang Wenli is just as much a hero as Reinhard. Like he is just as much, for all the meaning of what you call a quote unquote hero, like he is that.
He's going to carry that weight.
Yes, he's going to carry that weight, and he might carry that weight for not a whole much longer. So I'm going to say thank you to Chung Yu Chan for for teaching you and I that sometimes we have to say the things we don't want to say. We have to accept their potential reality. Oh God. Okay. I don't know if Yang Wenli survives this season.
Well,
I don't know if he even survives this battle.
We have to get through the next episode first before we start talking about that.
Yes, but I feel like I want to talk about it here specifically because of the marriage proposal.
All right.
Yang Wenli has obliterated his plot armor.
Yeah.
And it is
the
timing is too convenient. Yeah. The timing is too convenient. Like now
I was less sure of Yang living at the end of episode 51 than I was at the end of episode 52. Let me put it that way. I think Yoshiki Tanaka is maybe smart enough to know to pull that one out to make you scared.
But also, here's the thing. I guess maybe we should have done this after episode 52. I did the exact same thing with Konev.
True.
Blatantly, we're just going to skip ahead just a tiny bit, but in episode 52, tragically, Ivan Konev is killed in action while fighting with the Empire. Poplin and Konev and the rest of the squad go out, and when they return, it's actually really effective. Like, it's a really effectively done piece of kind of like minor tragedy here, where like Poplin's like, "Why are you here? You're not the leader of the Konev squadron."
I'm acting commander.
And he's like, I'm acting commander. He's like, that's bullshit. Konev is your leader. Don't give me this. Don't give me this in subordination. Where is Konev? And it's like, Konev was killed in action, and it's rough. Like, we didn't even really like know Konev that well, but like he was such an integral part of like being Poplin's
Check.
his
other half.
His foil. That like without him,
it was never just. I feel like it was never just Poplin. It was always Poplin and Konev.
Exactly. Like, what is Poplin now without Konev? What conversations does a Poplin have without a Konev to bounce them off of? And that's my point, though. They foreshadow Konev's death so blatantly in episode 52. Like, I want to believe Legend of Galactic Heroes is better than that, but clearly they've shown not always.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and my fear is that what if Konev's death is in and of itself a dark foreshadowing of events to come? Like, because we've talked about this, right? Like, for better or worse, or at least the way they have written the plot, they make it feel like this battle can only go one of two ways. Either Reinhard lives or Reinhard dies. And if Reinhard lives, that means Yang fails.
I mean, what was the wager I made at the end of episode 51? It was either the FPA dies and Yang lives, or Yang dies and the FPA lives.
Right, and my suspicion is that it's going to be the latter. That Yang will do something in this battle, like once he has failed to kill Reinhard. And again, this is why it sucks to know about long-haired Reinhard.
I know, right?
We inherently know Reinhard.
I couldn't not see that artwork
because like it's iconic. It's an iconic like look for him.
Yeah.
And so of course we were always going to be slightly spoiled by this, but unfortunately that means we know Reinhard survives the Battle of Vermilion. There's no art of long-haired Yang Wenli. There's no Yang Wenli with a ponytail, with a ponytail and a beard or something, like
core drill stick.
Like, so the thing is, like, then does Yang Wenli fail to kill Reinhard, but then somehow give his life to ensure that the FPA survives this war? Like, does he do something that actually forces the Empire to retreat without killing Reinhard? But is that very same act also his life, in exchange for the FPA survival? And
we'll find out.
I guess it's
perhaps.
Just what is Legend of the Galactic Heroes without Yang Wenli?
Who knows? I don't know.
What is this show without arguably its most
our favorite character?
Even if Yang Wenli is not your favorite character,
I know
he is in many ways its most compelling and fleshed out and interesting. And I'm not going to say I don't know if I can watch a Legend of the Galactic Heroes without Yang Wenli in it, but if I weren't watching this with you and we weren't recording this podcast, Yang dying might be enough to convince me to stop watching this show altogether. It's too much. But also, I don't see how else season 2 ends, and that is what scares me.
Yeah, well,
very core of my being.
Before we get to that, we have episode 52.
Yeah, so let's just get to 52.
The Battle of Vermilion, part 2.
My point is, I just want to say my point is, Yang, don't propose to people. The wars are over. It's really bad. It's really bad. How could you throw away all your plot armor like this?
Yeah. So
52, Battle of Vermilion Part 2.
Yeah, Yang Space starts lamenting over how tiring this battle is, and how if he had just a few thousand more ships, he could make this work.
Yes.
But he doesn't.
No. and he has to make do with what he has. And it's kind of this really like kind of not tragic, but in a ways tragic like example of the circumstances in which Yang Wenli is operating under. Like
Always at the disadvantage.
always at the disadvantage, never enough men, never enough support, and it's always because the FPA is just too fucking incompetent to like just give him what he needs. Like,
well, I feel like this time they actually did not have like.
right, well, that's the thing. They waited
because before they were too competent to give what he needed.
Because here's the thing, like he's like Yang Wenli is asking for just 5,000 more ships.
If we hadn't fucking charged into Empire territory 30 episodes ago.
Right, 100,000 ships were lost, during the Battle of Armlitzer. Like, the FPA had so many ships to lose before now, but, like, it just never, like, it just always took it for granted. It always took its numerical, its fleet strength for granted. Just thought they could afford to throw it away because they were fighting against what was at the time an empire clearly in decline. Pre-Reinhard. And, like, now we see what all of those decisions have led to.
There's a fun line here where, because basically Young's trying to keep charging in, bust through every line of defense to get to Reinhard, but there's always a new layer. And so Rear Admiral Moreno here is like, "Whoa, how many layers is this? What is this, a petticoat?" Which I thought was really fun because Reinhard von Lohengrin, the petticoat admiral.
Yes, his OG title. But back from his von Musel days.
Yeah,
it just kind of speaks to, like, just the sheer manpower that Reinhard has available to his disposal. Like, Reinhard doesn't even need to play that smart. He just has sheer numbers to work with. And, like, you could say, oh, what a cheap trick, but it's like, nah, it's just he played the game better. Like, he maneuvered.
My fault you can't, like, stop me from throwing 100 Hadokens from far away.
Right. Like, if I can afford to throw 100 Hadokens at you and you can't stop it, like, that's not bad strategy. That's just me working with, like, the inherently superior resources I have. And then, yes, after this, we have a bit here where, god damn it,
Konev is doing crossword puzzles in his spare time.
Yes, in between the battles. And of course.
Wow, well, what starts with an F but is 7 letters and is something that everyone has.
Right, and it's a funeral.
Oh no.
And yeah. So so they make it through, like, I think they said they made it up to like 9 layers. It's really like it's really just bleeding out the FPA fleet. They're like, they keep busting through, but it's just never enough until Julian shows up.
I think I figured out what their formation is.
Yeah, Julian kind of figures it out. He's like, what's happening here is that we have to keep going in a straight line towards Reinhard, right?
Mm-hmm.
That means that actually Reinhard's formation is very long and narrow towards us. It's basically a fucking mega jet stream attack. Just like layer behind layer behind layer. But what this means is that what he's basically doing,
once you pierce a layer, they can circle back around and go to the back.
Because you are also forced to pierce into them in the same very narrow linear formation. So what Reinhard is actually doing is kind of like shuffling the deck, right? Like, you've imagined each layer as a card in a deck of cards. Yang Wenli's fleet pierces through one card. The remnants of those cards retreat, and they go all the way to the very back, reform, and kind of just they just keep reshuffling the deck, basically. And, like, that means that no matter how many layers you pass through, you will just get ground down by attrition.
Yeah.
But Julian also thinks that because we now know this, there might be a way to get around this deck of cards formation that Reinhard's thrown at us.
And
we get some cool
that's a really cool shot sequence of Poplin flying some jets.
Yeah,
schooling some fools.
Yeah, like you joke about like how Poplin is this goofy character, but also Poplin's not to be fucked with. Poplin is
Yeah,
fucking bar none, maybe the best goddamn starfighter in this
like
entire show.
head of alcohol squadron or whatever.
Yeah, whiskey, rum, and Applejack. I think.
Yeah,
I don't know which one he's actually the leader of, but yeah, like he's fucking schooling on these folks, doing these sick ass like really tight turn maneuvers that like are getting
yeah,
dudes to crash into their own ships.
yeah.
It's really good, but tragically at the end of it, the FPA fighters are getting ground down by the sheer attrition, the sheer just number of ships they're up against. Like it's like good job, Poplin, you destroyed a cruiser. Too bad there's like fucking 500 of them left.
Yeah. I think he's
And,
Applejack because he's got an A on his helmet.
okay, that makes sense. But yeah, he gets back and Konev is not there. Konev doesn't make it back.
That's that scene we talked about a few minutes ago.
Yeah, and but we had this kind of a good bit here where he's like, well, how
Took
did
a
Konev
cruiser
go out?
to beat Konev, huh?
Right. He's like, right at first he's like, how many ships? How many ships took out Konev? Like, I refuse to believe Konev could get taken out by one or two fighters. Like Konev's too good. Like Konev could go up against 10 fighters and come out on top. And yeah, and then the acting commander's like, he got taken out by a cruiser. And Poplin's like, huh, well, when I go out, the Empire
Let me at least 10 battleships.
Yes. Take me out. And you know what? Here's the thing. Let's be real. Poplin's not surviving this show. Like, not a fucking chance.
You don't think so?
Dude, no. Not a chance. Dude, fucking... Okay, there are characters on the FPA side I think will make it. Whatever form or shape the FPA is in by the end of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, there are a few characters I think are going to make it. I think Julian... I mean, fucking hope I'm not jinxing Julian here, but like I think Julian's gonna make it.
I mean, he's always the last one left in the ED.
Yes,
so
yes, I think because of Yang Wenli, I think Frederica will make it. Like I think, once you become a widow, your plot armor goes to fucking unless your name is Jessica Edwards. Widows usually get max plot armor. Rest in peace,
Jessica Edwards. Yep.
God damn. Honestly, I don't think Kazanu makes it. I don't think Shenkot makes it. Poplin definitely doesn't make it. I think maybe some of those other like admirals, like
Patrushev and
maybe Patrushev or Murai make it, but maybe like an Edwin Fisher or something. Bukok definitely doesn't make it.
Fisher hasn't showed up in a while.
Right, he doesn't show up often enough. I bet Maschenko probably doesn't make it. Schneider?
Yeah, Merkatz's buddy. Merkatz is number 2.
Oh, him. Yeah, because Merkatz probably eats it. So, okay, we'll say this for season 2, our season 2 finale podcast. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of characters on the FPA are going to survive. I mean, look, okay, to be fair, I also don't think most of Reinhardt's admirals are going to be still standing by the either. But they also have a lot of them left. But Poplin, no, dude. Poplin's got like 0 plot armor. He's the joke character. You know he's going to die when it's time to get serious. More serious.
Yeah, I suppose you're right.
But you know what? I hope that whenever he does go out, he's totally fucking like taking out 10 battleships.
Right. Anyway, Yang decides to retreat into the asteroid belt temporarily.
Yeah, but at the same time, this kind of works because Reinhardt's getting impatient.
Yeah, they point out that even though this strategy is perfect for wearing down the FPA, it doesn't jive with Reinhardt's personal, need to battle Yang Wenli, right?
Like, yes, this is a strategy that will inevitably win because time is on Reinhardt's side, manpower is on Reinhardt's side. Like, Reinhardt can literally, all he has to do is keep continuing this strategy, and he will eventually win.
Yeah.
But Reinhardt's not that kind of guy. Reinhardt is the guy who, I mean, everybody calls Mittermeier the Gale Wolf, but, Reinhardt is also a predator. He needs to feel the thrill of closing in on his opponent and destroying them personally. Like, it's this strategy doesn't suit him, basically.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but he sees a big chunk of FPA ships split off the asteroid belt, and everyone was wondering, what's the ploy here?
right, basically they're kind of like moving around the side to go to the side of
And it's just
Reinhardt's
enough
cards.
It's just enough ships that it could be a decoy or it could be the main force.
Right. Like it's just enough to be like, well, you can't just straight up ignore it. So Reinhard sends out I don't even remember fucking which admiral, but he sends
everyone,
out
bunch of dudes. Let's see here. I have some screenshots.
Okay.
Vice Admiral Velner Altringen, Vice Admiral Dadlich Sauken, Admiral Grunman, Rolf Aldo Brauhitz. A bunch of dudes who aren't that important.
A bunch of dudes who you're not going to need to worry about their names for much longer. In about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So Yang Wenli continues the grand tradition of pulling off the most fucking beautifully jank-ass strategies or tactics against his enemies.
Turns out the numbers were because they were dragging asteroids. And we just throw these big-ass rocks right into the middle of Empire fleets.
Yeah, so it turns out that it's just a small splinter fleet dragging a bunch of asteroids just chained together and then just dragging them right into the fucking Empire fleet.
They strap rockets on them and everything.
Yeah, and they just completely obliterate huge portions of Reinhardt's fleet.
And Reinhardt's like, God damn it! I've been had again!
Had again by the trickster Yang Wenli.
A source of disease.
Yes, and this allows the rest of Yang Wenli's fleet to close in on the flagship. And Reinhardt is within within firing distance of FPA gun.
Yeah, and his staff implore him to escape.
Yes, but he's too prideful to retreat. He's like, how dare I could? Do you think I could live retreating from Yang Wenli? And Reinhardt was, and here we have a moment where Reinhardt was almost about to pay for his arrogance.
Frickin' the FPA ship is right on top of them, charging its lasers.
Yes, and I think this part is a little, well, whatever. It's a little too dramatic for me, but I get it. So because here's the thing: these ships have ranges of miles. Why would they need to get this close to charge up? But
because it looks dramatic.
Because it looks cool. Because yes, an FPA battleship is about to fire its guns right into Reinhardt's stupid fucking face when it gets blown up from the side. Because it turns out
Mueller's back.
Yes,
not Mittermeier. Mueller's here.
Müller arrives at the last second. Seconds before his death to save Reinhardt's life.
Shrek throws his fleet in between the FPA fleet and Reinhardt, we're human shields for my master.
Basically. It's you have this bit here where Yang's just like, damn, I hadn't accounted for Müller.
Yeah. How could we have seen Müller? How come Müller got here?
And then we find out.
Get a flashback.
So Müller. To recap, all of the admirals from Reinhardt's side were sent to capture different supply outposts.
Yeah.
The idea being that resistance is likely going to be very minimal here, but it's a real enough of a threat to look like you're actually being sent out, and not that we were just purposely isolating Reinhardt. But the one Mueller's assigned to is garrisoned by one Admiral Cockraine, and commander or whatever. And instead of putting up a resistance or even trying to stall for time or anything, Cockraine surrenders. He surrenders without resistance immediately
for the right reasons.
And here's the thing: Cockraine is undeniably a good man. In fact, here's the thing. If Yang Wenli knew about what was about to happen, he would probably still tell Cockraine to do it anyways, because that's just the kind of person Yang Wenli is. He would respect what Cockraine does here, but Well, let's
Yeah.
just get into it. So Cockraine surrenders without resistance because he does not want his civilians or men to be harmed. He knows that there's actually nothing they can reliably do to resist the Empire. They don't have enough men. They don't have the fleet. Like, any resistance would be futile in the end.
Yeah.
So he,
Mueller's like, I like your moxie. What do you want to work for me? Mueller trying to cop Reinhard style here, basically.
yeah, trying to pull a Reinhard here, like recruiting good members of your enemy, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But no, because, and here's the thing, Cockraine, again, he does it for the right reasons. He not only does he surrender, but he formally requests that whatever Mueller does, that he also distributes those supplies to FPA civilians, and that he does not execute any of his men or whatever. And again, this is a good action. This is an honorable action, but also in ways, like,
I'll allow you to seize my stuff without bloodshed.
Well, without bloodshed, but also without resistance. And here's the thing: I don't want to get into it too much about the moral philosophy of war, or how morality changes in wartime.
Mm-hmm.
But there are philosophers who can make the entirely valid argument that actually Cockraine was a very evil man and has committed a very evil act here. Not just because of the Yang Wenli stuff, but there are circles that argue that when you are at a war against your enemy, that it is actually your moral imperative, up to a certain extent, to
fight them to death.
To fight them, to hinder them. Because, yes, you surrendering here is very good and honorable and will save the lives of your men. But what if that allows your enemy, and in this case of Yang Wenli here, what if it allows your enemy to then fight another enemy quicker and in better health and in better condition? Then in ways, have you not just assisted your enemy?
How can you predict such a thing, though?
Right, how can you predict such a thing? But at the same time, it's but then again, you are a soldier, you're not a politician, you are not a civilian, you are a soldier. And let's be clear here, the moral imperative of a soldier is to destroy your enemy and defend your nation. That is the explicitly stated occupation of a soldier.
Could argue that him giving up without a fight is protecting his nation's people, though.
It is protecting his nation's people, but then at what cost? Again,
right.
I'm not necessarily arguing for this. What I'm saying is that the argument often is that, if protecting your people is good, but if it also aids your enemy and allows them to fight even better because you have helped them, in a ways, have you not in some way actually potentially doomed even more lives? You know?
And I mean, the narrator straight up says it here that because he allowed Mueller to take the base with no resistance, that gave Mueller enough time to rush to Reinhardt's side.
Yes,
at time of crisis.
Right.
Perhaps if he had delayed Mueller, Reinhard would have died at that moment.
Yeah, exactly. Had Cockraine put up a resistance or fought back, even a little bit, who knows how things could have changed. And again, they have a great line.
That appraisal would be left to the analysis of future historians.
Right. Yes. There's this idea that, again, I have my own feelings about Cockraine's actions. Other people, I'm sure, have many feelings about Cockraine's actions. At the end of the day, Legend of the Galactic Heroes makes the smart choice of neither portraying this as a good or evil act.
It's just how it went down.
Right. It's not like Cockraine is portrayed as a sniveling coward who's oh, please don't hurt me.
How could he have known?
Surrender. Right. Exactly. They don't portray him as an idiot. They don't portray him as a fool or a coward, or selfish. Again, he refuses Mueller's appraisal.
It's more a commentary on how the nature of history and war is just 1,000 individual decisions made independent of each other that all form one cohesive whole.
Yeah, here's the thing. I'm sure some people will use Cockraine's actions as an example of proof of great man theory. That, you see, it was because of the actions of a single individual that this battle was affected. But that would be missing the bigger picture. That would miss that the reason that battle happened in the first place was because of actions committed by Yang Wenli and Reinhard von Lohengrin. But then the actions of that battle were caused by the actions of both the Empire and the FPA in their political machinations and the actions they took leading up to that. And that those actions were affected by the political maneuvering of Fizan and many individuals on that side. And those actions were
Right. It's
it goes
all
on and on and on.
web,
Right.
Like,
It's a web of it's layers of webs, right? Like to say that, oh, this happened solely because of this one individual's actions misses that those actions themselves were informed by millions of other actions
this
committed
is
prior
why
to.
you get like, I mean, I understand the appeal of, like, say, a time travel story where I changed one tiny thing and that changes everything.
Right, and
But,
then like
like,
maybe it does, but it doesn't change them as like in the way you might think they do, because
right.
it was just one piece of, again, thousands or millions or however many, like. And so again, I think
Show understands that is that while one action can have lots of consequences, it is because those consequences involve the actions of many other people as well.
exactly. And, again, I think that's why I really like the line, this analysis will be left to future historians. Like,
Because how could any of them have known in the moment?
because how could have any of them have known at the moment, right? Like, and you can just feel, because of how well fleshed out Legend of the Galactic Heroes setting is, you just know that, yes, people, like in universe, historians will be debating Cockraine
A historian will.
for decades or centuries. Like, there will be historians who will build their entire career around analyzing Cockraine and the choices he makes here.
Aubrey Cockraine.
Right. Like, well, that's what I mean. Historians will debate for centuries. Like, was Cockraine a monster, or was Cockraine a man in a tough situation who did what he felt was the right thing? And that's just two options. There are millions more, of course. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that is like why we said at the start of the show, and why we still say now, that when we talk about Legend of the Galactic Heroes and the concept of lore, Legend of the Galactic Heroes does not have lore; it has history, because it's actions.
You feel
and
the weight of everything,
yes, yes, they have so much nuance and depth to them. But yes, so to get back to it, Müller fucking shoves himself in between Yang and Reinhard, and that saves
and,
Reinhard's life.
a perfect time for a Yang to not, like, turn the tide, basically.
But Yang kind of starts to retreat, kind of like, fuck it, like, we can't keep pushing in.
Shooting, but
Yeah,
I mean,
well, they are shooting, but like we're getting, I forget which admiral says it, but like they lost like 60% of their fleet,
Right.
in that fight. Like, they are exhausted.
there's a shot of Dusty Attenborough, like, exhausted and unshaven,
Right,
and, like,
fucking Dusty needs a shave. He's got stubble. Like, it just tells you like what has been the human, like, yes, we've seen the people dying, but also like the mental cost, the emotional cost of this battle.
yeah.
And
So
like,
Admiral Mountain is killed in action.
yeah, and like it's just like they were so close, and now they're so far again, and now they have to fight both Müller and Reinhard.
Lots of Empire admirals, like, calling in, asking for help, and Reinhardt just says, "Tell them to die."
Right, die for the Empire, because like those parts of the battlefield have already been lost.
I didn't bring my magic jar today.
Yeah, Reinhard forgot his magic jar. He knew he left something when he left for Fizan, but just, hey, when you're packing, you think you remember everything. You hope that Hilda and Oberstein will remind you. Reinhard, did you remember your magic jar? But like,
I don't remember where I left it.
Don't remember where I left it. If only Kirky Eyes were here, he would remember to bring that magic jar.
Kirky Eyes were still alive.
Yeah, if only Kirky Eyes were still alive. But
He'd have the magic jar.
He'd have the magic jar.
Over the end credits, we have this hilarious sequence of Müller's ship gets like is about to explode.
Right, it's like critically injured, and
escape to another battleship or zoom command. All right, let's go. Oh, and this battleship was also shot.
Yes.
All right, I need to move to another battleship, and he just keeps moving from ship to ship to ship to ship.
Right, I think they say that by the time he says, like, by the time Müller reached his 5th battleship, he had finally reestablished the battle lines. And I was
no, it's because because Müller was constantly unable to take command of his fleet,
Right. Yes.
Yang was able to like reform up his battle lines.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was trying to get to.
I
Is
thought
that,
you were
like,
saying Müller.
no. I was trying to say that by the time Müller finally gets into a place where he can actually start leading troops again. Right. So so basically, yes. So by the time, because Müller keeps hopping all these ships, he doesn't have time to lead his men. And again, this kind of speaks to like, even this is just happenstance. Like this is just chance, right? It's not like anybody said specifically target, Müller's ship. It's just like, hey, it's a battle, like people get shot, like plenty of commanders in war, especially pre-World War II, back when, commanders actually did have to lead often very close to the battlefield, were often just taken out by like completely stray bullets or cannons. It's like, this is the era when you could accurately snipe, a commander. So often it was just like, I think that dude's got a funny hat over there. Try and land a cannon over there. Maybe that's
slightly different from the rest.
Right.
Probably take him out.
And so we kind of have this great bit here. Right. It's just like again, like, yes, was Yang failed to kill Reinhard because of pure, quote unquote, pure chance, but also by pure chance, Yang is given just enough time to reorganize his fleet because of Müller's hilarious ship hopping adventure. That also gets him a new nickname in the process.
Müller is now Müller Ironshield.
Yes,
along with Odd Eyes Royenthal and Geowulf Mittermeier.
Yes,
Müller has distinguished himself enough to have a title.
And you also forgot Bittenfield. It rhymes with Garfield.
Black Lantern Bittenfield
rhymes with Garfield. But yes. So that ends episode 52, and
and Yang is within firing range of the Brunhildes.
Yeah.
And time to fire, and
starts charging the laser, and then cuts to fucking still frame.
It's so funny to me because we all know the anime thing of, and the last frame of the episode goes to pastel style.
Yeah.
Whoosh. But no, they didn't fucking care to actually do that.
It looks like they didn't have the times.
They just throw a real shitty filter over the last shot.
Oh my god, it is the most awful fucking looking filter.
It's so funny, it's so good.
It's like, it is so like early 2000s, like somebody discovered like, fucking Adobe Premiere.
It would have been like mid-90s.
Or like Final Cut Pro. Well, no, because isn't this scene one of the reanimated ones?
Oh, yes, you're right.
I think it is. Like, it's not one of the old shots.
Oh, you're right.
The new.
I wonder how that looked in the old version.
Yeah. Well, point is, it is just the most hilariously bad looking like still still frame of like right before the cannon is about to fire, and despite that, fucking. God damn it, this show. Fucking most goddamn shit in the world.
I don't know what's happening to happen.
I don't know, man. I'm so tired. I'm so fucking tired of this show. Not in the sense that I'm tired of this show, but this show tires me out so much to watch. Like,
it is heavy.
Yeah. Like, I just want everybody to be okay.
Yeah, I know.
I just want...
Yang doesn't deserve this.
He doesn't. He truly doesn't. Yang deserved to be born in peacetime. He deserved to live his days as like an average to above average historian. Just whiling his days away working on his PhD. But
baseless speculation time.
Yeah, this is the world he lives in, I guess.
I don't think Yang will die in this season. I don't think it will happen. I think at worst he gets captured.
I don't think he gets captured. That's too convenient. Because I think because if he gets captured, he meets Reinhard. And I think it is actually I think one of Legend of Galactic Heroes' secret thematic imperatives, like to build up
they never meet.
Is that Reinhard and Reinhard and Yang never meet.
But it's taken half the show already.
Yeah, like they've never spoken. Like they have spoken to each other across like correspondence, but like
never spoken to each other directly.
Yeah, and I think that is
like, what if season 3 is of Yang Wenli? The FPA has collapsed. Yang Wenli is being held captive, and Reinhard must constantly lord it over Yang Wenli that he's won, must like spend his time trying to get Yang Wenli to understand him, etc. Because Kirky Eyes is here, and Kirky Eyes, who met Yang Wenli, told him all those years ago that he seems like a good normal man, and if we could be friends, that would be the greatest. And saying, Reinhard just thinks to himself, I must speak with Yang Wenli. And meanwhile, all of the FPA dudes are like plotting the resistance or something.
We
need to bust Yang Wenli out of military prison.
I think that sounds I think that sounds like a great non-canon Gaiden series. I think that's too wishful in its thinking. Like, because yes, believe me, I would watch an entire season of Reinhard trying to like fucking emotionally and mentally break down Yang Wenli, and then Yang Wenli just always having like some fucking snide
one line that shakes Reinhard to his core.
Right, like I can totally just imagine like this fucking amazing spin-off anime that's just like Reinhard like fucking taking Yang Wenli around his like his capital, saying like, see Yang Wenli, see how good my people live, and they can vote as well, right? And now we're beginning to institute democratic institutions. Also, by the way, we're cracking down on corruption, and people now are living higher standards of living than ever. What do you think of that, Yang Wenli? And Yang Wenli, here's the thing that would make this show work, would make this hypothetical show amazing, is that Yang Wenli wouldn't come up with like some hyper-calculated like question.
No, he would just be Yang Wenli.
Yeah, like he would just say, this would just be Yang Wenli being Yang Wenli, and he would just say some single, like barely thought out, innocuous comment. Like, probably something to do with, like, yeah, Reinhard, but also you still, like, hold all the reins or something, Just, like, some completely innocuous, like, he's not even thinking that deeply, just a stray observation. And Reinhard would just, like, he'd be like, just pierced his heart. And, like, he'd be like, excuse me, I need to return to my private quarters. And Reinhard would agonize over that comment for days.
Oh, basically, I don't think maybe that scenario I laid out won't happen exactly, but I don't think Yang is going to die within the next 2 episodes. I might be wrong. Maybe I'm eating crow in the next couple days.
He proposed to Frederica.
I think they're just trying to scare you, man.
I think that's what's happening, because that's what they did to Konev. Okay,
that's why Konev dying takes some of the heat off of Yang Wenli.
Are you saying Konev died so that Yang Wenli may live?
Maybe on a purely narrative level. Yeah,
I don't buy it, man. I feel like they specifically set up Konev's death specifically to foreshadow Yang Wenli, and oh man, I just don't know, man. I just
trying to make you scared.
They succeeded. I'm very scared. I'm very scared. Legend of the Galactic Heroes, a fucking underrated secret best horror anime. In addition to every other title I have given it. In addition to best space opera and best political thriller and best romance and best comedy, also best horror.
I wonder just over the next 2 episodes how much of what we have just said will be absolutely turned on its head.
Oh yeah, look, if everything I say is completely invalidated, of course I'll be happy.
People told us to watch 51 through 53 simultaneously or whatever.
Yeah, well, we're doing 53 and 54 now.
Sorry,
so sorry, guys. But, okay,
it's important that we speak not knowing what will happen.
Right, look, it isn't like, look, all this good-ass content you guys are hearing right now, this is because we don't fucking know shit. That's what makes this work. Like, yes, believe me, if we have enough fans out there that there is somebody out there willing to fucking make a YouTube supercut of every time we've been wrong about our speculation in Legend of the Galactic Heroes, please make that. I would love to hear it. I would love to hear
Legend of the GLORIO Heroes cringe compilation.
Yeah, every dumb, bad thing we've speculated incorrectly. Like, I would love to hear that. But yeah, I think with that said, with a heart full of anxiety, I'm going to say that has been another podcast of Legend of the GLORIO Heroes. might as well take care of the housekeeping. So, as always, you can listen to Legend of the GLORIO Heroes and the rest of our content on theglorioblog.com. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can listen to the podcast as well as our sister podcast, the GLORIO Chat, on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Google Play. It's everywhere now, I think.
All major podcast aggregators.
Yes. Leave a review. I think that we're a 5-star podcast, but of course, I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. I trust your judgment. I judge your taste. If you're listening to us, if you're listening to Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, I bet you have great taste, and I think you can be trusted to know that we're a 5-star podcast.
Legend of the GLORIO Heroes on High Dive and Verve.
Yes. And you can also listen to the podcast on YouTube. If you subscribe there, well, you might one day get a unique URL.
We keep saying that, and there will be a time where it happens, and then all of the old podcasts will sound fucking ridiculous.
Yes, and it'll be great. But yeah, I think that's it. So as always, thank you all for listening. Iro, thank you for coming along.
Yeah, thank you.
Are we? No, we're still. Oh my god, we're not even halfway. I was going to say, are we even half yet?
After next episode, we will be halfway.
Oh my god!
I'm concerned 54 as the end of season 2 to be that halfway point.
Sure. I was trying to remember what is half of 110, and
my understanding is that this marks the end of the 5th novel.
Okay, out of 10. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, man, we're getting through it, guys. We'll get through this together. But yes, we'll see you all next time amongst the Sea of Stars.